Is there any other important information that you got through the Freedom of Information Act files?
I think there were several critical pieces in the Freedom of Information Act files. One was a list prepared by the Department of Defense as an internal briefing paper of all of Abdul Rashid Dostum's previous alleged human rights abuses, including a missile attack in the 90s on Kabul, which killed approximately 4,000 people, mostly civilians. And it was amazing to see evidence of reservations about the alliance with General Abdul Rashid Dostum. And what you also saw is drafts of letters from the Department of Defense to Physicians for Human Rights, the actual effort of them figuring out what to say to us as we requested protection for our investigators to go back under UN auspices and perform a full exhumation and request for site security. It was an amazing window into a process of bureaucratic kick the can.
So James Risen reported earlier this month that there were requests from inside the government to investigate what happened at this mass grave. Did you know about those requests?
We knew from speaking with former administration officials that there had been informal conversations about the need for an investigation. What we did not know is that the FBI had filed 10 witness reports. What we also did not know...
And these were witnesses who were in Gitmo, but who
this is a really
had been in that, as you describe it, the convoy of death.
Yes, this is a really important point, Terry, is that the FBI was there to interrogate suspected terrorists, and they started filing reports from witnesses to an alleged crime. And I think it's a credit to Special Agent Spry and the FBI agents who are at Guantanamo that even in that environment, they were trying to do their job as U.S. law enforcement. We did not know that until the New York Times reported it. And also, you really get a sense, a clear view of Special Ambassador Prosper's efforts to move the investigation forward. As we had some sense of the State Department's efforts through public statements and also through the Freedom of Information Act request, there was a cable from then Secretary of State Powell to the U.S. Embassy in Kabul requesting that they work with the United Nations and the government of Afghanistan to, this is at the end of 2002, to push forward an investigation in the wake of the Newsweek story.
Might there be legal consequences for members of the Bush administration somewhere down the line, depending on what an investigation, if there is an investigation, eventually uncovers?
Underneath international law, which the U.S. is party to, covering up a war crime can itself constitute a war crime. And we still don't know the full story of why and how those investigations inside the Bush administration did not go forward. There needs to be, to sound like a broken record, Terry, hearings. There needs to be an investigation. But the fact of the matter is that the Obama administration must commit to this simple fact, that if a law was broken in the initial crime or in any follow-on crimes that may have occurred by the Bush administration, then those who committed them need to be prosecuted. And I think that Dasht-e-Leili should not be swept under the rug. It is critical to show the people of Afghanistan and the people of the United States that the United States once again abides by the rules of law when the laws of war are violated.
Now, President Obama recently said to CNN, the indication that this had not been properly investigated just recently was brought to my attention. And he said he asked his national security team to collect the facts for me that are known and will probably make a decision in terms of how to approach it once we have all the facts gathered up. So what's next for Physicians for Human Rights in terms of investigating what happened at this mass grave?
Well, it's been 7.5 years, but we are going to keep going until the full truth is known. We are preparing potentially more Freedom of Information Act requests. We are continuing to communicate with the United Nations and all other relevant international agencies about follow-on investigation requirements. And most of all, we are advocating to not only the Obama administration but to the American public for people to see Dasht-e-Leili more than as some crime in the past, but as really a critical part of what's happening now in Afghanistan. The people of Afghanistan are fighting more than the Taliban, Terry. They're fighting a culture of impunity that has existed there for now over 30 years. And if there is going to be stability in Afghanistan, there must be justice. And crimes like the Dasht-e-Leili crime must be investigated. Families must know what happened to their loved ones, regardless of what side they fought on. And we must strengthen the institutions necessary to have impartial justice in Afghanistan. And Dasht-e-Leili is a test case for that.
Dr. Leaning, Nathaniel Raymond, have either of you ever been involved in an investigation of an atrocity where the United States had been an obstacle in the investigation?
I've been involved in atrocities and investigations in the West Bank and Gaza, in Chad Darfur, in Kosovo, in Angola, in Soviet Union, in Soviet Georgia, a number of other places where there have certainly been oppressive and punitive regimes and high levels of threat for the kinds of investigations we've done, that is, Physicians for Human Rights. But this is the first one that I've been involved in where there is very strong evidence that there is a link to U.S. High-level political knowledge about a crime, an alleged crime, but if it is established, a war crime of significant magnitude. And I do feel, as an American, that it's very important that we get this one right.
If I can just very quickly, in addition to investigating the Dasht-e-Leili case, I've been working for Physicians for Human Rights investigating detainee abuse by the Bush administration over the past 3 years. And for me, Dasht-e-Leili is part of a larger horrific mosaic of what happens when the United States, a supposed human rights leader and with a proud legacy of not only following but of helping to establish the international laws of war and treatment of prisoners, abandons that commitment. And I think that the issue for accountability here has obviously both on detainee abuses at Abu Ghraib, the issue of Dasht-e-Leili, Guantanamo, the C.I.A. black sites, has become politicized. But accountability in these cases is not some political witch hunt. It is about being able to restore our reputation. And that's not some ephemeral thing, Terry. It is, as someone who's worked on investigations on the Horn of Africa and in the Middle East, when the U.S. gives the green light to the abuse of prisoners, to the wanton disregard for their rights, it gives the green light around the world to regimes to do whatever they want. And so it's not just about this case. It's about showing that the United States is back in its position of working to enforce the laws that we helped create over our 200-plus year history. And so I think it's easy when people say, well, these are Taliban and Al Qaeda dead. Well, it's, to quote Senator McCain, it's not about them, it's about us. And that's why, for me, the Dasht-e-Leili issue is so important. Our values are they the values of our founders, or are they the values of an Afghan warlord?
Dr. Jennifer Leaning, Nathaniel Raymond, thank you both very much for talking with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.